Hi everybody. As promised, here's my first capsule on The Shining. So in this one we're looking at Jack Torrance's job interview and what we can draw from it. We'll see how the different characters and the setting of the interview help reinforce the themes that I've raised in my general analysis, which you can find here if you haven't watched it yet. And to recap, those themes revolve around a global mind control system managed by the British monarchy, of which PSYOPs, such as the Apollo 11 mission and electromagnetic harassment, are key components. So let's start with the characters. So with Kubrick, you have to pay attention to both the characters and the actors, to what is shown on screen and what is not shown. Let's start with the hotel manager, Stuart Ullman, who is played by the actor Barry Nelson. This character is a real Kubrickian composite, as he references the following elements: the Stuart dynasty, Samuel Ullman, who was a rabbi, the Kennedy dynasty through his strong resemblance to Kennedy, the Nelson dynasty through the actor's surname, and James Bond at Her Majesty's service. So the character has a very strong aura, especially with young women and the staff at the Overlook. He has a highly conventional and professional attitude, accompanied by precise gestures that recalls those of notables. His resemblance to Kennedy is striking. For those who have seen the general analysis, you already know that I put forward a new reading centered around the English Stuart dynasty and the British monarchy as guarantors of the global mind control system, and I'm showing that Kubrick was exposing it through most of his films. This character looks exactly like Kennedy. He conducts Jack's interview, and Jack himself looks quite a lot like Kubrick during the filming. Here, the first name, Stuart, is not insignificant. It directly references the British monarchy. We have already seen that Wendy and Danny were the tartans of the clan Stuart. The surname Ullman refers to an American poet and businessman, Samuel Ullman, who was one of General Douglas MacArthur's favorite authors. Why is Samuel Ullman important here? Ullman was a controversial rabbi who worked extensively for the emancipation of African Americans through education. His most famous poem is called Youth, and it makes several references to electromagnetic waves and radio stations. So the interest in juxtaposing this author's name with Stuart is twofold. It reinforces the omnipresent theme of electromagnetism and mind control, and it also allows us to develop the character of Halloran, who, as we will see, is in the service of the Stuarts, because the Stuarts rely heavily on African American population as a mechanism to defend their power. As for the choice of the actor, Barry Nelson was the first actor to portray James Bond on screen in 1954 adaptation of Casino Royale. I think that we all know that James Bond is at Her Majesty's service. As a bonus, the actor bears the surname Nelson, which is that of the Admiral Nelson, who is, even if it's debatable, the most important figure of English history. That man is buried like a true pharaoh in the mausoleum of St. Paul's Cathedral in London, a cathedral that was designed by Christopher Wren. I believe Kubrick absolutely outdid himself here with the casting choice and the meaning he put into it. You'll notice, and this will come up often, that none of the casting choices are random. Everything has meaning. To summarize, what Kubrick is telling us through this character is that the person at the head of the United States is American only in flags and symbols, and that behind that persona, he is largely in the service of the United Kingdom. Now, the second character that we're going to explore is that of Bill Watson, who is played by a man called Barry Dennen. This character is, in my opinion, the most enigmatic of the movie. He is the usual caretaker of the Overlook, and he seems quite reluctant about the decision to entrust the hotel to Jack Torrance, who is a teacher with no experience. On top of that, Bill seems extremely worn out by his job, and he is very poorly dressed. This role seems like a real burden, which, like one might imagine, the burden of managing the United States during the Cold War. So regarding the choice of the actor, at the time of The Shining's release, Barry Dennen was best known for playing the role of Pontius Pilate in Jesus Christ Superstar, a musical inspired by the New Testament. Pontius Pilate is the one who carried out the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. He was a judge, albeit he was reluctant to do so. He had to disagree and comply. You will therefore note that this element connects perfectly to the theme of human sacrifice here. And at the end of the interview, the hotel manager says, "I'm going to turn you over to Bill," as if Jack's fate was now sealed. The name Watson also evokes something else. The Watson family was one of the first families of child stars in Hollywood, 9 brothers and sisters raised in captivity who acted alongside all the great Hollywood stars, of which James Stewart, Lionel Barrymore, Fred Astaire, Shirley Temple, Katharine Hepburn, etc. This again evokes both juvenile programming and the continuation of English and Scottish dynasties to Hollywood. So now let's move on to Jack Torrance. Although we will dedicate a full capsule to the character, but what we can observe here in the interview is that the manipulation had already begun before his arrival at the hotel. During his first job interview, we learned that he had not been warned about the tragedy that occurred to the previous winter caretaker, which Stuart Ullman calls a cabin fever, which is a state of madness caused by extreme isolation, and that led the previous caretaker to kill his 2 daughters with an axe. From the outset, we sense that Jack emits low vibrations and is very self-centered. He shows little empathy for his family, and he wants to isolate himself to work on his new book in a very selfish manner. So if we move to the setting of the interview, we can notice that the office is filled with symbols of American power, the eagle, the American flag, and they all reinforce the idea that Jack is being recruited by the hotel just as Kubrick was recruited by the United States to produce the Apollo 11 films during the Cold War. The United States is the Overlook Hotel, a country built on an Indian burial ground, supposed to lead the world toward freedom, but which has lost its ways because of negligent management. To maintain their leadership, they must perform the necessary shamanic rituals, whether sending totems into space or organizing human sacrifices. The many pens on the desk echo the floating pen in 2001: Space Odyssey. They represent power over mysticism and the writing of the world Evans. We also find the Red Book on the desk, a reference to Jung. Does this mean that occult power is inspired by Jung, draws its method from certain grimoires, and practices Christian Kabbalah as the psychanalyst Jung did? That is at least how I understand it. What is less clear is this. Who was destined for sacrifice? Was it Danny or Jack? From the authorities' point of view, I don't think it really matters. As we saw in my first video, it was originally meant to be an energetic sacrifice which would have been performed by Jack over his son, Danny, which turned into a human sacrifice due to Jack's failure and from Danny's precognition. It is clear here that the outsider is Jack, is not a Stuart. And he tries to appropriate Danny's energy, but fails. Plan B is therefore human sacrifice, which also fails, and in the end, Jack is the one who's sacrificed. There's plenty of food for thought around this short but crucial scene, which is essential for understanding The Shining in depth. If you like the video, please like and share. You can find my books on Amazon or download them for free on archive.org. And that's all, folks. I hope to see you soon.